Good evening. This is News.PH, but it's not politics as usual. I'm UPೞATE. We are nowhere near discovering what really happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Kuala Lumpur can only say that they're sure the plane is somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean. But nothing, no debris, bodies, or even the plane's black box has so far been retrieved. But before that, we discussed this most recent immigration controversy. People were up in arms last week over an announcement that if you wanted to travel abroad, you'd have to present proof to immigrations that you have the financial capability to do so. That's what we talk about in this first segment with Immigration Commissioner Siegfried Mison. Good evening, Commissioner Mison. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Sir, can we begin with this, the ruckus that was raised over the news that Filipinos who want to travel abroad would now be required to show proof of financial capability to travel. No? You have responded to that by saying that the guidelines have been in effect since 2012.
Correct.
And that offloading is not a policy, but and we quote, a consequence of the implementation of the guidelines.
Correct. The guidelines have been out since January 2012. Mm-hmm. The guidelines have been formulated by the Interagency Council Against Trafficking, mm-hmm. of which the Bureau of Immigration is just one of the 8 government agencies in the council, plus 3 other non-government organizations. And incidentally, maybe not necessarily because of this recent controversy, mm-hmm. the Secretary of Justice has called for a meeting only yesterday. Mm-hmm. And even for tomorrow, okay. on Friday, I think. There is a need for us to revise the guidelines to remove any ambiguity caused by the maybe controversy. Mm-hmm. But more specifically, I must say that there is no such requirement.
No such requirement
to financial capacity to travel.
No such requirement in the guidelines?
There is, but only when you are subjected to secondary inspection.
Secondary, okay. We will go into that, sir. I wanted to go through it, word by, okay. Line by line, okay. Word by word, para naman malinawan yung mga tao, sure. No? Kung ano ba talaga yung nangyari. So, this is the, this was provided by the Bureau also. This is the January 10, 2012 memorandum issued, like you said, by your yes. predecessor, Ricardo David. And it's entitled Guidelines on Departure Formalities. And we're going to bring that up in a little while on the screen so our viewers can see. No? Guidelines on Departure Formalities for international bound passengers in all airports and seaports in the country. Like you said, it's dated 10 January 2012. And this is the 6-page memo. Well, the guidelines are 6 pages plus the cover page Correct. Memo that you say, that you brought up just Correct. A while ago. And that this was what you used to explain.
Yes.
No, and it looks harmless. It looks harmless in a way. You have a cover page which explains that the guidance were formulated, like you said, by the technical working group of that Interagency Council. And of course, I suppose there is no quarrel whatsoever, no, when you say that what you're trying to do here is combat and defeat trafficking.
Correct.
That is the intention here.
Correct. And that's just only one of the tools mm-hmm. to really combat trafficking. Mm-hmm. There are so many other ways to combat trafficking. And yeah. in fact, if you're already at the port of exit, you're already at the last line of defense, mm-hmm. then it's quite too late. Mm-hmm. That's why there are other agencies like the NBI, PNP, the DOJ, which are expected also to do their anti-trafficking efforts even before the victims mm-hmm. go to the airport.
Okay, let's go, sir, to the first page of the guidelines. And again, we're going to bring that up on the screen so our viewers, you all can see what we're talking about. So, guidelines and departure formalities for international bound passengers in all airports and seaports in the country. Number 1, the first item is, as you can see, tourist travelers. And it says a traveler intending to go abroad with a tourist temporary visitor's visa shall be subjected to, number 1, the primary inspection. And then it says during primary inspection, the following documents shall be required from a traveler: A, passport; B, visa when required; C, round trip ticket. Then you have item number 2, secondary inspection. This is what you mentioned a while ago, Commissioner, Correct. No? Paragraph 2.1 says the Bureau of Immigration shall conduct a secondary inspection of a traveler. Let's change the graphics. Shall conduct a secondary inspection of a traveler when deemed necessary for the purpose of protecting vulnerable victims of human trafficking and illegal recruitment, etc. through the assessment of the following circumstances: age, educational attainment, and financial capability to travel. Sir, my first question is, what does "when deemed necessary" means?
Okay, so during primary inspection, our inspectors are required to process the passenger for less than 45 seconds. So within that 45 seconds, you present your travel documents, and then we assess whether the purpose of travel is legitimate and whether this person can be considered as a potential victim of trafficking. Again, they do it by virtue of asking questions.
Okay.
They look at the age of the passenger. They look at the at times they look at the gender as well, because we all know that women are more prone to trafficking. And then we look at the frequency of travel, all of these things. And then more importantly, it is the country of destination. That's the more important part, that maybe the guidelines are not really as clear with that.
Okay.
But so based on that first assessment, within 40 seconds, if the immigration officer thinks, oops, maybe this person...
Maybe there might be a problem here.
Then we refer to secondary inspection.
Okay, so yun yung when deemed necessary.
Correct.
It's really based on, what is that, parang gut feel?
I know, it's...
well, partly gut feel, no? Because if all these factors combine, ganun ba yun?
And, armed with the training of our immigration officers, somehow they will be able to detect whether this person is, a legitimate tourist or not. So it's a combination of so many things.
Okay, because it doesn't say in the guidelines what is when deemed necessary. Para bang that's something internal to you. Para bang you just surprise us na lang.
But I think to put matters in perspective, of all, let's say, 3.8 million Filipinos who traveled outside the Philippines last year, only 2% were subjected to secondary inspection. Only 2%.
Only 2%.
So it's really not a big number.
How many is that of 3.5 M?
3.5, 3.8 million.
So that's like...
maybe 70,000, 50,000.
70,000. And subject to secondary inspection, of the approximately 70,000, how many of those were offloaded?
I do not have that statistic right now ready.
Okay. But it's not like 10,000 of the 70,000. Hindi siya masyado.
That I'm not sure.
Okay. But yung assessment, no, like you said, so age, educational attainment, financial capability to travel. How does one prove financial capability? You have to bring bank documents, bank books, no?
No, if you're, we all at one point in our lives been a tourist. So when you go and leave the country, you make sure you have enough money. Maybe you have credit cards, maybe you have cash, or more importantly, you have a viable source of income where your travel can be supported.
Yeah. No, so but how do you prove that to the immigration officer? I mean, and how will the immigration officer, how will he ask you for financial capability to travel? Can you show me a credit card? Ganun ba yun?
Not necessarily. No. Well, first, are you employed? If you're employed, then chances are, you can... You
have income if you're employed?
Correct. Or you have a business. That by itself is already a good guide to really tell our immigration officers, I have this financial capacity to travel. But the moment you're not employed, you don't have any source of income in the Philippines, and you're going out as a tourist, and we all know tourists, they spend money.
Yeah.
So that is already a red flag.
Then unless, of course, you have that proof that somebody is going to host you.
Correct.
In
that's a different story. Then we require, who will be your sponsor in this country? How will you be spending for your lodging? All that.
So apart from asking the question about are you employed, or maybe even where are you employed, tatanungin ka pa rin ba na how much do you earn? What is your monthly income?
No, I don't know. No, that's not part of our training to our immigration officers.
Okay, so how else can you prove financial capability to travel? What else can the immigration officer ask a person who is undergoing secondary inspection? Again,
meaning it's similar to how the visa process is done by other countries. Let's say you try to apply for a U.S. visa, U.S. tourist visa. They require so many things. Very similar, but not as in-depth or comprehensive, because we require our secondary inspectors to complete their inspection within 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah. Okay. So what else can they ask, apart from are you employed?
Employed businesses.
Yeah. What about, can they ask, can you show me a copy of your bank book?
No. no.
Is that illegal?
That's not good.
They cannot ask. They cannot ask for that, right?
No.
Okay. Can they say, can you show me a
Credit
scanned copy of a title of a property to show me that? May ganun ba? Pwede ba yun?
No. That is already absurd.
Absurd.
Yes.
So it's not like
asking for a title of a copy of a land title.
Yeah, or any property owned in any part of the Philippines to prove that
that is already anti-poor. No, but the thing is, if the passenger will say, "No, I have this property, I have this blank," then you have to show proof. It really depends on what the story of the traveler is, because at times, not at times, most of the time, if you are really a tourist worker, or somebody who is posing as a tourist but will really work and will not pass through the protection of POEA, they have their own concocted stories. And the moment you tell a lie, the moment you really fail to show that you have the capability to support your travel as you declared it, then that's the time you are likely or you are vulnerable to trafficking.
Okay, so what, we're talking now about those who are mga legitimate travelers. There was a lot of, I'm sure you monitored that on Twitter because you are on Twitter, sir,
Yes.
diba? So ang daming nag-react na parang, I have to present proof na ang daming mga ganon, ano?
Yes.
Ano yung hindi pwedeng hingin ng immigration officer sa'yo?
Number one is you cannot say, "Show me the money."
Okay.
That is strictly prohibited.
Okay.
And that was even time during Commissioner David. There is no such thing, no such requirement. And if they do, please tell us who said that. Identify the officer and let us know.
So parang, here's the money I'm bringing. Ganon.
Oh, if it's voluntarily shown, yes.
Yeah, no, I mean to
but
say,
you cannot compel.
Okay.
That's not good.
So they cannot ask you to show you the money. What else? They cannot ask you to show them bank records. Not that you'd be bringing abroad your bank books, no? They cannot ask you for what? What else?
I think that's basically it. But the standard thing that you ask really is anything that can really show that you have visible source of income to support your travel.
Okay.
Because again, if you're a tourist, then you must be spending something as a tourist. So how would you fund or finance your travel if you don't have a source of income?
Okay. It's clear, sir, that this policy, this memorandum has not changed since January 2012, and it will not change even if a ruckus was raised about it, right?
No. Breaking news. Like I told you yesterday, we had a meeting with members of the UPЄATE.
Okay.
And then on Friday, there will be another meeting.
Yeah.
And that was really taken up as well.
Yung financial capability to travel?
One member was asking, I think this is very ambiguous. Why do you put then financial capacity to travel as a requirement? So there was a short discussion, and I said, maybe what you can say, since we are already trying to amend the guidelines, you put in financial capacity to travel according to the purpose of the traveler as declared by him.
Okay. How does that make anything different?
Oh, okay. If I go to Dubai and I say I will be spending 10 days there, of course then the threshold of trying to prove that I can sustain my stay in Dubai for 10 days is much larger as compared to I will spend overnight in Hong Kong.
Okay. But why did this member of the UPЄATE say that? Who is this member who said it's a bit ambiguous?
I really cannot remember, but I'm sure she was one of those members.
She,
yes.
Okay. Ambiguous meaning what?
It's
legal.
It's open-ended, and it maybe
Open to abuse.
Correct, and
Open
maybe
to
she
abuse.
saw it as maybe anti-poor. So I said no, it will be in accordance with the declared purpose of the traveler.
Okay, and in other words, this is kasi pag primary inspection, ang hinihingin lang sa iyo is yung passport nga, the visa, and round-trip ticket.
Correct.
Okay, so the minute they ask for financial capability to travel, even age, na alam mo nang nasa secondary inspection ka na, alam mo nang pinagdududahan ka na.
Most
Parang
likely,
ganon.
yes.
Okay, so I will be offended if if an immigration officer will start asking me, ilang taon ka na ba? Nag-graduate ka ba sa college? Do you have financial capability to travel?
During primary?
No, kasi nga, kapag umabot sa secondary, kapag
Correct.
hindi siya yung immigration officer satisfied sa passport, visa, round-trip ticket, pwede siyang mag-secondary, di ba? So in other words, to any traveler, the minute you start hearing age, educational attainment, financial capability to travel, you're already in secondary inspection.
Correct.
And I personally, I would be offended.
Correct. That's why, you know, during primary, first thing they will ask, oh, so what will you be doing in this country of destination?
Okay. Ito bang secondary inspection, and then a while ago you said, sir, the word you're using, assessment, by asking several questions.
Yes.
Is this profiling?
No, it is not. And that's a good point as well, because yesterday we had this discussion, and in the guidelines itself, it mentioned something about profiling. And I said, I think, ma'am, the President or Secretary of Justice, I think, ma'am, that is not correct. And that is really very discriminatory, and maybe it will be taken negatively.
Yeah.
Because what we really do here is we really assess the risk as to whether this person, this traveler, is more prone, more likely, or very vulnerable to become a traffic victim.
Okay, because you know, I remember one particular reaction. It was a little bit meant to be a little bit of a parang patawa reaction.
Okay.
Sabi niya, hindi ko nga alam kung sino, hindi ko na maalala sino yun para bang on Twitter. Paano ba yan? Medyo maitim ako eh. So parang pagdududahan ako sa appearance pa lang. Anyway, sir, we'll continue this discussion. We'll have to take a short break. News.PH will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching News.PH on the Solar News Channel. I'm Pio Ontiveros. Still with us, Immigration Commissioner Siegfried Mison. Commissioner Mison, can you tell just by looking if a traveler is going to be an undocumented worker?
No.
No?
Looking and speech, and then of course the documents.
Okay.
And again, you look at the other circumstances. How many times has this person traveled? Country of destination, which is the most important of all. Because we all know which are the destination and which are the transit countries for traffic victims.
Destination and transit countries are?
Malaysia,
Singapore, Thailand,
Thailand at times. Hong Kong, not as much. Before it was.
Okay. Pero, so combination, documents, interview, kung anong, sa Q&A,
appearance,
and then appearance.
Yes.
If it's appearance, kanina, yung sinabi ko nga, no, someone was making a joke, in a way, a bit, out of it, no? Paano yan kung maitim ako, pagdududahan ako?
But if you have been traveling for like 3 or 4 times, then that should not be a ground for you to be referred to secondary inspection.
Okay. But if it's your first time to travel, tas maitim ka, patay ka.
Ganon.
Nako, talagang profiling na yan. Okay. Paano kung if they look scared or lost? Or, furtive glances, mga ganon. Mga
Yes. Because, again, if you're a legitimate traveler, why will you be afraid?
Yeah, no, but if
maybe
if
you're hiding something.
Yeah, but if it's your first time to travel nga, you've never been in an airport by yourself.
Could be.
Diba?
Could be.
I mean, and even that, kung first time to travel.
That's why it will show in the secondary inspection. That's why we give enough time for a proper assessment of the traveler.
Do immigration people look at the last name of the person? If it sounds, how do you say this? If it sounds a bit strange or something, then, nako, parang this must be a sign or something. No? Never the name.
No,
not at all.
Maybe where the passenger is from.
Where the passenger is from,
No.
Like what?
Take the case, for example, you have this Filipina. From Tarlac. She was trying to leave the country by way of the Zamboanga seaport. Don't you think that's a red flag?
Okay, and what happened to her? Was she offloaded?
Yes, because based on our records, she tried to leave in Manila, or from Manila. She tried to leave from Pampanga.
Okay, and she was offloaded?
Yes.
Pampanga meaning Clark, the airport?
Clark. And then,
okay, so there were records.
Correct. And then last defense, or last chance.
Yeah. Zamboanga.
She tried to live in Zamboanga.
Using the same name, same passport.
Same passport, of course.
What was her destination?
Malaysia.
Malaysia.
Yes.
Was it as a transit or as a final destination?
Because we have an international port of exit in Zamboanga.
Okay, yeah.
From Zamboanga City, it goes straight to Sandakan, Malaysia.
Sandakan?
Yes.
Okay. Did she have papers that, or she was saying that she was going to be traveling?
She's going to be a tourist.
Tourist. Okay. So yung mga ganyan red flag.
Yeah, the first instance, why would a person coming from Tarlac be here trying to leave by way of Zamboanga to Malaysia?
Okay. And that is not, isn't that is profile? I mean, profiling is one way that you can track down. I mean, like you said, combination yan eh. Appearance, the interview, the documents, di ba? Or you're
again,
just afraid to use the term profiling?
It's not really afraid. It's just a matter, to me, it's not really entirely correct. It's just we really assess, because that's really the purpose of these guidelines, to really minimize the exit of these potentially or actual victims of trafficking.
Okay. Ever since January 2012, kanina you said that, what, about 70,000 have been...
more or less.
More or less.
Yes.
This is since January 2012.
Oh, for 1 year.
For 1 year. Okay. Does this mean that, because you're saying that, you know, if you're a legitimate traveler, then you don't, it's not like you need to bring proof or anything.
Correct.
This means that next time I travel abroad, I don't need to bring proof that I have a financial capability to travel.
If it's not your first time, most likely you don't have to.
Okay.
But no, not to lose sight of what we really want to happen here, is that before 2009, we were like the #1 source country for trafficked women and children. We were in the Tier 2 watch list of the United States Traffic in Persons Report. And because of these guidelines, and we really tightened the noose, so to speak, we are now in the, from Tier 2 watch list, we are now in Tier 2. We are,
Tier 2?
Yes. Now, what we are trying to achieve is we go down to Tier 1. Take the case of Taiwan. Taiwan used to be in the Tier 2 watch list, similar with the Philippines. They became Tier 2, I think, 2 years ago. And then now they're in Tier 1. Because, again, Taiwan is also a source country for trafficked women and children.
What about drug mules?
What about them? They can also be offloaded.
They can be offloaded. Can immigration, you know, this kind of policy, can this track down and...
No.
No?
It really, because to us, or for immigration inspectors, we only inspect the person, not necessarily the luggage. So it has to be done by some other person. Some other agency. So to us, you know, if you're really going to be a drug mule, the drug syndicate will make sure that you are...
That you look...
You look the part.
You look the part, meaning...
You look the part that you will not...
professional.
Yes, you will look like a legitimate tourist.
Okay. Okay. All right. This memorandum is in effect, like you said, but then there will be a meeting on Friday where you will discuss itong ambiguity.
Yes, and with the way Secretary De Lima is trying to push the entire technical working group, maybe in a month or 2 months' time, that will be revised.
Okay. And like, again, can you repeat that? How might it be revised according per your suggestion?
The financial capacity to travel will be changed to financial capacity to travel in accordance with the purpose as declared or disclosed by the traveler.
Okay. So if it's vacation in wherever, then
the threshold of proving that you have enough money to support yourself, then, I mean, maybe for the sake of your televiewers, it's just like if you're a parent and your child is leaving the country as a tourist, would you not want to make sure that he or she will have enough spending money to be a tourist?
Yeah.
So in the same way, maybe the Bureau of Immigration, being, let's say, part of the state, being the father, making sure his children, any of its citizens who leave the country as a tourist, will have enough spending money when he is abroad.
Okay. To wrap up, and also in connection with what we've been discussing, in August last year, you sent a request for support and assistance to the Executive Secretary, to ES George Ochoa, and you asked for several things here, like IT equipment, itong advanced passenger information system, etc. Marami kayong hiningi dito eh.
Yes.
Are you saying that if you don't get this, then we will have a real problem with immigration?
No. You know, Filipinos, just like the Bureau, we are resilient. We will do with what we have. But all of these requests, or most of these requests have been given. We have given enough immigration officers. We'll be hiring 200 immigration officers within the second quarter.
Okay.
In terms of budget, we were given budget to buy X number of state-of-the-art equipment. We will be getting our biometrics done, hopefully within the day, installed in our ports of exit. Marami naman.
Okay.
But the thing is, you know, as Filipinos, we try to make do with what we have.
All right. Final words, Commissioner Mison?
Final words. We at the Bureau, we try to really help as best as we can. And our mandate really is to control and regulate the movement of persons to, from, and within the country. Our original mandate was just foreigners. But because of this anti-trafficking law, then we are at the forefront. Although we've been asking other members of the Interagency Council Against Trafficking for a more visible presence in the ports of exit to really help us, because we cannot fight this alone. And then, like I said earlier, the moment the passenger is already in our airport, he is already, as we speak, in critical condition. We don't want that. So we want the other agencies, you know, to somehow share that burden as well, for the NBI, the DOJ, the Department of Labor, the DSW, to do whatever programs that they were mandated to do as well, to make sure that we really fight this menace of human trafficking.
All right. Thank you very much, Commissioner Fred Mison of Bureau of Immigration. Thank you, sir, for joining us tonight.
And thank you for having me.
When we come back, the lost Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, that's what we're going to talk about. Stay with us. Welcome back to News.PH, and I'm Pio Ontiveros. In the second half of the show, we talk about Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. We have with us Captain Amado Soliman. He's president of the Air Safety Foundation and former CAP Chief of Aircraft Accident Investigation and Inquiry Division, and aerospace engineer Rabin. It's Rabin.
Yes.
Rabin, as in like Yitzhak Rabin.
Yes.
Okay, president of the Society of Aerospace Engineers of the Philippines. Good evening, Captain Soliman.
Good evening, ma'am.
And Engineer Rabin. Thank you very much for being here. There's too much speculation about what happened to Flight 370, and is it correct to say that we will only know the truth when the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorders are found?
Yeah,
Captain
because
Soliman.
at the moment there are so many theories that are being forwarded, and nothing has been really pointed out as the cost of the disappearance of the aircraft. So it's only the voice recorder that will give us the clue as to what really happened.
So that makes it so important to find that voice recorder. But what is it? What if it's several thousands of feet?
Yeah,
under
it's
the
a very
sea?
deep area on that
Okay.
Indian Ocean.
Captain, what did you think of all those theories? You know, there was a whole range of theories: non-nuclear, electromagnetic pulse, hijacking, so that the plane would be used as a weapon later on. Ang dami.
Yeah, these are all speculations, and which cannot be confirmed at this point. So as I was saying, it's only the voice recorder that will tell us really what is happening in the cockpit. And if the flight data recorder will also be recovered, then we will know what transpired in the flight as far as the aircraft is concerned. At the moment, it's all gestures and speculations.
Mga guesses lahat.
Yeah.
Engineer Rabin, you agree?
Yes, ma'am. I agree with Captain Soliman's belief that unless we find black boxes, we cannot really say what really happened in that flight. Although there had been evidences, and the Malaysian authorities have already expressed some facts about the accident, like satellite feedback from the flight. That's the reason why they announced that they have determined that the flight has already landed in the Indian Ocean.
Okay. But what were you thinking when you were reading and hearing all these different theories, from, a whole range,
Yes,
from the wildest to the most plausible to the whatever.
Well, from aviation's personnel's point of view, I think we should really wait for the concrete evidences to come out for us to really believe what has really transpired in that accident. So unless, like I said, there's no evidence that can really pinpoint what really happened in that accident.
Yeah. So apart from the flight data recorder, the cockpit voice recorder, is concrete evidence, for example, debris that we find floating. But the problem here with the debris is that there have been sightings, pero hindi pa siya na-retrieve. Hindi po ba, Captain? So
Yeah, because the weather yesterday was quite bad, no? And the waves are quite unstable. So it was suspended. The search was suspended. As far as I'm concerned, the most probable thing is there are 2 Iranians on board that aircraft, and they are using passports that do not belong to them.
yeah.
So, my only hunch is that these are the only 2 people who have ill intention regarding the flight.
Okay.
That's my own assumption. No?
Okay. Even if, kasi some people were saying na pwede rin namang gumamit sila ng fake stolen passports.
Yes.
Pero ang gusto lang naman nila makarating sa ibang bansa. Wala naman silang talagang balak sa aeroplano.
We can never ascertain that, no? But the thing is, from the very start, using a passport that do not belong to you, and then the Malaysian people did not properly inspect when they were boarding the aircraft. So that's the most probable clue to this mystery.
Okay. Although the Interpol was saying that there are thousands of people who fly, clear across the world using stolen passports with no other intention but to fly to other destinations. Na posibleng wala rin siyang kinalaman.
Well, as I was saying, that is to me that is just my own assumption, no?
Okay.
Because these are the only 2 persons who really boarded that aircraft with spurious documents.
Okay.
All the rest are with
Well, there was one theory that was written in a blog by a pilot with 20 years experience, and his theory is that there was a fire on board, which explains why the plane had to turn left, make a U-turn, etc.
Well, there's a theory that the 2 pilots might be also involved, no? Because of their own family squabbles or problems. There's a saying that the captain is separated from his wife, and therefore he has got. So they must have other reasons other than going to Beijing, no? So we don't know that, but really, to be able to alter the flights, going to Beijing, then making a west turn, it has to be a pilot that will do that. He must know something about aviation to be able to do that.
Okay. Hindi pwede yung ghost flight, zombie flight, yung lumilipad na lang yung aeroplano in its own. Everybody's knocked out unconscious because of a fire on board or something?
No, kasi if you will knock out people there and all that, who will man the flight? Somebody knowledgeable about aviation will be the one to do it, or the pilot themselves, under duress. They might be forced to do it. No?
Yeah, okay. But hindi pa we have reinforced cockpits? I mean, you can't get into the cockpit, right?
Supposedly. That should be a very, very well secured cockpit, even now.
Yeah.
You cannot just get inside the cockpit without the permission of the crew. But let's say I am the culprit, or whoever I am. I will get one of the stewardess, put a gun on her head, and then to tell the captain that he should open the door for me to get inside. That can be done.
Okay. Engineer Rapil, what were you thinking, sa lahat ng mga theories that were coming out? And
Well, ma'am, initially, we have a lot of speculations about what really happened. But from my colleagues, we were talking about it, and initially, we have a lot of theories ourselves. So it still is actually a mystery for us. But when the initial findings were announced by the Malaysian authorities, first announcement was that there was a deliberate action that has transpired in the flight, like the difference in the time when the transponder and one other system was cut off. So it was determined that because of that, it was a deliberate action. So something really happened in the flight, which is not caused by any fire.
Really? So you don't believe that theory?
No.
There was a fire on board, and you know, it was so well written. Yung explanation ng piloto na yun, na from the evidence up to that point, no? Parang the pilot did everything to try and land the plane. Well, eventually.
Yes, ma'am. But one thing that I miss in that theory is yung communication. The pilot should have at least contacted someone regarding the emergency.
Yeah.
So nothing was explained about that communication.
But this same pilot who wrote that blog, no, with 20 years experience, was saying that precisely even that makes sense. No, there was no attempt to communicate, because he said, as a pilot, and tell me if this is correct, Captain Soliman, your first priority is to aviate, then you navigate, then you communicate. So if you're busy trying to fly the plane for whatever reason, if it's disabled or whatever, parang hindi mo na iisipin na to communicate? Ganun ba yun?
You should. Aviate, navigate, communicate. Those are the three things that you should be doing as a pilot.
Yeah.
Because you're in charge of so many hundred people behind you. know?
Okay.
So you do not forget those things, because these are norms in the flying profession.
Okay, so it's not an excuse now. You're trying so hard to fly the plane and things are going haywire and you were not able to communicate.
You should be able, because the plane itself can fly on it, even with one engine. So even if you had an emergency of one of your engines, you can still fly that aircraft, although it will be slower and you have to go down a little.
Yeah, okay. But we are sure that the plane crashed and that no one survived. As
Well, if it did crash in that area where they are now searching, nobody will survive there.
Okay. Sir, you said if it did crash in that area.
Yeah.
You're saying if it did crash. What are you saying? We're not sure.
Are we sure that those debris are really part of the aircraft?
Okay.
They are not yet been announced.
Yeah, but there's like 100 plus pieces of objects that were sighted.
So those are probably, these are now getting to be credible evidences of the aircraft, pieces of the aircraft. But until such time that we will be able to retrieve them and really examine them to be really part of the aircraft, then that's the only time we can say the aircraft really exploded upon impact.
Okay. Is the theory correct that it could have been flying till it ran out of fuel? And that's why Inmarsat was saying that this may be the location kung saan siya bumagsak.
Probable, because when you run out of fuel, the only thing possible is to go down.
You don't, like, the plane doesn't glide for several...
Well, for a few miles, depending on your height. According to the news, from 35 they went down to 12,000. So 12,000 will give you so much time, even if when your engines are out or you are out of fuel, no, it will only cover a short distance. But really, you have to splash on the water after the engine is stopped.
Engineer Rabin.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think of everything so far, including this latest 100 plus objects found, seen at least?
I agree with Captain Soliman. Unless they have determined those debris as part of the flight, we cannot really say what really happened as of now.
Yung Air France crash, it took them 2 years before they got the black boxes. And that ocean where it ditched in is not as deep as the Indian Ocean, right? So what are we talking about?
This one is deeper, very deep, no?
So is this like, Captain Soliman, in your experience as investigating crashes, is this like one of the more mysterious?
This is more complicated than the Air France in the Atlantic, no? Because that the location of that aircraft was really verified. No? Unlike this one, it's more than 2 weeks before they were able to get some debris purporting to show that they are part of the aircraft. And then again, the depth of this ocean is quite deeper than the one that is involving the Air France.
Okay. How do you think Kuala Lumpur, the Malaysian government handled everything, the crisis from day one? There's a lot of criticism.
Yeah, ma'am. Well, we can only do as much, I guess, with the limited resources.
You cannot blame the relatives of the victims to be very emotional about the whole thing. Even you, if you have one of the passengers to be part of that, you'll be emotionally upset. No? But sometimes there are people who are becoming unreasonable, like demanding that they return those people there. How can you do that if they are under the sea? Sometimes the reaction of the relatives are becoming unreasonable.
Okay. Okay. Engineer Rapi?
Yes, ma'am. Like what I said, you have limited resources, and the place where the aircraft supposedly crashed is a place which is not in, or shall I say, in the international water. So there is also the dangers of high waves and powerful winds. So it's not really easy to locate such an aircraft if it crashed in those oceans.
Okay. Sighting debris is one thing, no? But
Yes.
retrieving it
It's another.
is a completely different
I think
thing.
it will be more difficult, especially if it went under.
Okay. Pero yung ibang debris, no? Well, okay, we're not sure if it's debris, but the Australian Malaysia saying that several 100
Satellite
pieces
images.
spotted na raw. Pero yung mga yon, those are floating. Earlier I was reading some articles na there is a danger of those floating objects just sinking.
Well,
Under
the
the water.
floating objects maybe are lighter than the main body of the aircraft, no? So the if it did not explode upon impact with the water, the whole plane will go down. And those some fragments that are now floating were probably part of the wings, part of the tail section, and all that. And these are what they call these materials that are lighter than aluminum. They are composite materials.
Yeah, okay. Sometimes when authorities would describe the kinds of objects, like they'd say cylindrical, 2 meters, syempre unang papasok sa utak mo, cylindrical, the engine, yung mga ganun, ano? We can't make any wild guesses or conclusions at this point? No?
With the engines that are that big, no? Do you know that the engine of 777 is the body of a 737? You can stand on that engine, the opening of that engine as if it is the body of a 737 aircraft. So, if the engines touch water, they will not explode. They will sink.
They will sink.
Yes, they will not go to fragments.
Okay. Engineer Rapin, as an aerospace engineer, are there things? There are things, no, that are done, procedures done on ground before an aircraft takes off, so that safety is primordial.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? But what we're presuming here is that everything was A-okay, or else the plane would not have been allowed to take off, right? Ganun ba yun?
Yes, ma'am. It's standard procedure that the maintenance of an aircraft is performed on a regular basis. Even every flight, you have to do an inspection. So from what I've read in the news, the last check was okay. So I don't think there are any problems on the aircraft. And this aircraft actually has a very good safety record.
Yeah, okay.
So it's most likely a deliberate man-made
Okay.
disaster.
Okay. So even the theory that there could have been a fire, electrical or whatever fire on board, can you even predict that based on the check before a plane takes off? No?
No, actually, from what I read in the blog, the tire exploded upon takeoff. So
this plane?
From what I've read in the blog of the pilot you were mentioning,
Okay.
He explained that the fire started from the landing gear when it took off. So, but if you look at the time that the loss of communication happened, it happened about 1 hour, already after the flight. So it seems improbable for fire to last that long in a high altitude, because also at high altitude you have cold temperatures. So,
so what would happen?
It may not really affect the fire or the aircraft that much. And there are systems on the aircraft that protects the aircraft from fire, just in case that it happens.
Okay, okay. So right now what we have are pieces of objects, 100 plus spotted in the southern Indian Ocean. What are we looking at from here on, Captain Soliman? What can we hope to see?
Hopefully, really the location is already pinpointed, you know, and the pieces that are floating around are part of the aircraft. The best thing for do is to retrieve the whole aircraft, then find out if the black boxes can be retrieved, you know, because these are going to withstand this kind of pressures and explosions, if there are any. So from there you can really get everything that is from voice box to the data recorder. The thing that he was talking about, the type lost landing gear exploding, that's another aircraft I think in Chicago. And they landed safely after that.
Yung Malindo?
This is not the plane. Because if that thing happened and there's fire on the north section, after more than 1 hour of flying and then making a turn to the west, that aircraft should have exploded if there is fire at that point. You know?
Okay, okay. Engineer Rabin, what are we looking at from here on?
From the debris, like what Captain Soliman said, the thing to do now is to try to recover the black boxes so that we can really gather the evidences needed to really say what really happened in the flight.
But they have like what ba? 1 month battery life? 1 month?
Yeah, the battery.
Yeah. Well, it's been 2 weeks already, so.
2 weeks. Yeah, they have a few more days too.
Okay. So they have how many? A week and a half.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. If they don't get the black boxes on time, or if they do retrieve them and then no. To retrieve them, you'll have to find the aircraft, right? Or a portion of it where the black boxes are. Pero no matter how long it takes, like if it's a year, 2 years, like in the Air France case, the recordings will still be there.
Yes.
Yes.
So ang battery life niya is the signal that emits it. That's emitted.
Yeah.
Okay.
The contents of the black boxes cannot be destroyed because these black boxes are constructed in a way that they will withstand those kind of eventualities. You know? So you cannot just erase those information there.
All right. Final words, Engineer Rabin?
Right now we cannot really say unless all the evidences have been collected by the authorities and the investigation has come up with their official findings. So right now still we are looking at some speculations.
Yeah, okay.
It's time now to recover the pieces of evidence so that we can really understand what really transpired in the flight.
But definitely you don't believe it was a fire, and you believe that
no.
there was
a deliberate action that was announced earlier by the Malaysian authorities. So that's what I believe in also.
Okay, so conspiracy
Something like
theory.
that.
Kung sino-sino na lang may whichever superpower is supposedly in possession of the plane, etc. Captain Soliman.
Well, at this point, my sympathy to the Malaysian government for all the troubles that they are involved now, and my condolences to the families of the victims. I just hope that something of this kind will not happen in our country, because we'll be much less qualified to cope with the demands of the accident.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Captain Soliman, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And Engineer Rabin, thank you, sir. And thank you for watching. I'm Pia Ontiveros. This is News.PH. See you again next Wednesday. Good night.
Again, they do it by virtue of asking questions.
Okay.
They look at the age of the passenger. They look at at times they look at the gender as well, because we all know that women are more prone to trafficking. And then we look at the frequency of travel, all of these things. And then more importantly, it is the country of destination. That's the more important part, that maybe the guidelines are not really as clear with that.
Okay.
But so based on that first assessment, within 40 seconds, if the immigration officer thinks, oops, maybe this person...
Maybe there might be a problem here.
Then we refer to secondary inspection.
Okay, so yun yung when deemed necessary.
Correct.
It's really based on, what is that, parang gut feel?
I know, it's...
well, partly gut feel, no? Because if all these factors combine, ganun ba yun?
And, you know, armed with the training of our immigration officers, somehow they will be able to detect whether this person is, you know, a legitimate tourist or not. So it's a combination of so many things.
Okay, because it doesn't say in the guidelines what is when deemed necessary. Para bang that's something internal to you. Para bang you just surprise us na lang.
But I think to put matters in perspective, of all, let's say, 3.8 million Filipinos who traveled outside the Philippines last year, only 2% were subjected to secondary inspection. Only 2%.
Only 2%.
So it's really not a big number.
How many is that of 3.5 M?
3.5, 3.8 million.
So that's like
maybe 70,000.
Capability to travel, no? You have responded to that by saying that the guidelines have been in effect since 2012.
Correct.
And that offloading is not a policy, but and we quote, a consequence of the implementation of the guidelines.
Correct. The guidelines have been out since January 2012. The guidelines have been formulated by the Interagency Council Against Trafficking, of which the Bureau of Immigration is just one of the 8 government agencies in the council, plus 3 other non-government organizations. And incidentally, maybe not necessarily because of this recent controversy, the Secretary of Justice has called for a meeting only yesterday, and even for tomorrow, on Friday, I think. There is a need for us to revise the guidelines to remove any ambiguity caused by the maybe controversy. But more specifically, I must say that there is no such requirement.
No such requirement
to financial capacity to travel.
No such requirement in the guidelines?
There is, but only when you are subjected to secondary inspection.
Secondary, okay. We will go into that, sir. I wanted to go through it, well, line by line, word by word, para naman malinawan yung mga tao, no? Kung ano ba talaga yung nangyari. So, this is the, this was provided by the Bureau also. This is the January 10, 2012 memorandum issued in seaports in the country. Number 1, the first item is, as you can see, tourist travelers, and it says a traveler intending to go abroad with a tourist temporary visitor's visa shall be subjected to, number one, the primary inspection. And then it says during primary inspection, the following documents shall be required from a traveler: A, passport; B, visa when required; C, round-trip ticket. Then you have item number 2, secondary inspection. This is what you mentioned a while ago, Commissioner, no? Paragraph 2.1 says the Bureau of Immigration shall conduct a secondary inspection of a traveler. Let's change the graphics. Shall conduct a secondary inspection of a traveler when deemed necessary for the purpose of protecting vulnerable victims of human trafficking and illegal recruitment, etc., through the assessment of the following circumstances: age, educational attainment, and financial capability to travel. Sir, my first question is, what does "when deemed necessary" means?
Okay, so during primary inspection, our inspectors are required to process the passenger for less than 45 seconds. So within that 45 seconds, you present your travel documents, and then we assess whether the purpose of travel is legitimate and whether this person can be considered as a potential victim of trafficking.
Good evening, this is News.PH, but it's not politics as usual. I'm Bohols. We are nowhere near discovering what really happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Kuala Lumpur can only say that they're sure the plane is somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean. But nothing, no debris, bodies, or even the plane's black box has so far been retrieved. But before that, we discussed this most recent immigration controversy. People were up in arms last week over an announcement that if you wanted to travel abroad, you'd have to present proof to immigrations that you have the financial capability to do so. That's what we talk about in this first segment with Immigration Commissioner Siegfried Mison. Good evening, Commissioner Mison. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Sir, can we begin with this, the ruckus that was raised over the news that Filipinos who want to travel abroad would now be required to show proof of financial, like you said, by your predecessor, Ricardo David. And it's entitled Guidelines on Departure Formalities. And we're going to bring that up in a little while on the screen so our viewers can see, Guidelines on Departure Formalities for international bound passengers in all airports and seaports in the country. Like you said, it's dated 10 January 2012. And this is the 6-page memo. Well, the guidelines are 6 pages plus the cover page memo that you say that you brought up just a while ago. That this was what you used to explain.
Yes.
No, and it looks harmless. It looks harmless in a way. You have a cover page which explains that the guidance formulated, like you said, by the technical working group of that interagency council. And of course, I suppose, sir, there is no quarrel whatsoever, when you say that what you're trying to do here is combat and defeat trafficking.
Correct.
That is the intention here.
Correct. And that's just only one of the tools to really combat trafficking. There are so many other ways to combat trafficking. And in fact, if you're already at the port of exit, you're already at the last line of defense, then it's quite too late. That's why there are other agencies like the NBI, PNP, the DOJ, which are expected also to do their anti-trafficking efforts even before the victims go to the airport.
Okay, let's go, sir, to the first page of the guidelines. And again, we're going to bring that up on the screen so our viewers, you all can see what we're talking about. So, guidelines on departure formalities for international bound passengers in all airports.